Welcome back. This video is going to speak to the common misconception that sensitivity is a weakness, when in fact it can, and I think it absolutely is, a strength. This presentation is going to show how sensitivity is an asset, not a liability in today's business landscape. So in the next few slides, we're going to have a lot of insights that challenge the traditional view of sensitivity in leadership. So as a former human resources and organizational development director, I've seen firsthand the challenges that organizations face when it comes to leadership development. It doesn't get at the core issue of systems awareness, habit formation, or any appreciation of differences in learning styles. And that's why I'm passionate about reimagining leadership to help create more effective, values aligned, and inspiring leaders. So, my mission is to share the strategies and insights I've gained through my experience as a neurodiverse leader to help others unlock their full leadership potential. So, in today's video, I'm going to be drawing on scientific research and evidence-based tools to demonstrate how leadership can be transformed practically and immediately, right? Immediate term. And through my work, I really hope to inspire others to rethink what effective leadership looks like and empower everyone to become the kind of leader our world needs. Sensitivity has long been viewed as a weakness, but what if it's actually a highly tuned survival system? Evolutionary biology suggests that within any species, there are different but equally successful strategies for survival and for thriving. So, explore the idea with me that sensitivity is one of those alternative survival strategies that has been essential throughout human history. This isn't a theory of mine, it is well established science that we'll get into. The human nervous system is an intricate and complex set of neural pathways. The totality and diversity of our neurological makeup is really nothing short of extraordinary. So, based on the research of scientists all over the world over the last 30 years, it's clear we really need to reconsider our perception of sensitivity. Why is that? Because the old model of leadership is clearly broken. I know I learned very quickly out of college that a leader had to be loud, relentlessly aggressive, and emotionally detached. This warrior king archetype thrived in the command and control structures of the last century, but that world is gone. That model has continually failed us. It creates toxic cultures where harassment is normalized, innovation is stagnating, and psychological safety is practically non existent. And I know that because I've lived it. I became a very high performer, managing large and complex operations, ascending in role and responsibility, but inside, I was fragmenting. I was using all of my energy to mask, to perform the role of the invulnerable stoic leader. And the result was constant depletion, leading to panic attacks and eventually burnout. So I learned the hard way how trying to assimilate to succeed could literally bring a person to their knees. This is a system flaw, but it's one of the external system and expectations, not your internal system. So it's time to rethink what effective modern leadership looks like. We need to move beyond this 20th century relic. So, for those who consider themselves sensitive or neurodiverse, just uniquely wired, thinking differently, trying to survive, let alone thrive in a system that's not designed for you is exhausting in the modern workplace. So, open office layouts, office happy hours right next to your desk, the feeling of needing to be on at all times, constant visual and auditory stimulation that comes from working in any co-working space, the pressure of high stakes, rapid decision making, and of course, the lack of psychological safety, all of these factors can create a sensory battlefield for those individuals who, again, think a little differently or wired a little differently in those office environments. So, what is this trait that so many of us have been taught to hide? In the 1990s, pioneering researcher Dr. Elaine Aron gave a colloquial name to the trait of sensory processing sensitivity, what you may have heard described as highly sensitive people or the highly sensitive person or HSPs. Scientists have studied non-human animals as well and have documented sensory processing sensitivity to exist in at least 100 other documented species. So we know now that all living organisms respond to variations in their physical environment based on their individual sensory responsiveness. So this is an innate trait, and it is defined by four characteristics, which Dr. Aron and other researchers describe as the D.O.E.S model. The D.O.E.S framework outlines four core kind of subtraits that define the trait of sensory processing sensitivity. That's depth of processing. You analyze things from every angle, connecting disparate ideas. Makes you a natural strategist in the workplace. Overstimulation. Of course, that's a natural consequence of deep processing that can be mitigated with healthy coping strategies, having a more flexible environment where you have a high degree of autonomy. Right, your nervous system is taking in much more data consciously, and so it makes sense that it can become overwhelmed more easily. But again, this is easily mitigated with degrees of self-awareness, self-development, right, and emotional regulation. Emotional reactivity and empathy, you feel things more intensely. That gives you a profound capacity for empathy. Who doesn't like it when they know somebody who actually cares about them and can pick up on subtleties, a change in their body behavior, right? The nonverbal cues, and asks, "Are you okay?" Sensing the subtle, you're the first to notice shifts in the room, the unspoken tension, and the tiny details that signal risk as well as opportunity. High sensitivity is a foundational trait that can exist on its own, or it can be a core component of other neurotypes. So, whether we're talking about ADHD, autism, PTSD, anxiety disorder, sensation seeking, combination of these, and many others not appearing on this screen, they're still going to converge around this same core experience of processing the world with greater intensity. So, what exactly is happening in the brain, or like why, right? The root cause of that thing could be different, something that's inherited, something that happens in the course of someone's life based on an experience like trauma in the case of PTSD. But we still are going to be on this spectrum, right, of sensitivity and have some degree of experience in the world with greater intensity than others. So for me, as a for instance, I am both high in sensory processing sensitivity and high in sensation seeking. So that makes for a very narrow window of what is the scientific term for optimal arousal, right? So high functioning, right, or high performance. I need to be then highly attuned to the needs of my internal state, know how to stay regulated with healthy coping mechanisms. And I've done a lot of work to design my life around these traits, right, these needs, so that I can perform at my best, right, so that I can perform optimally. That's what that narrow window of optimal arousal means. Understanding the role of high sensitivity then in any neurotype and trait that you have can help us better appreciate the diversity of human experience, right, and the richness that that brings. Embracing neurodiversity, which is a completely natural thing for humans, means celebrating, right, not just acknowledging or tolerating these differences, but actually embracing and celebrating the unique perspectives and capabilities that come with different neurological makeups. So, where do you fit in? The latest research shows that sensitivity isn't an on off switch, right? It's a spectrum that every single person is on. How cool. We've all heard the terms sensitive, terms resilient, used to maybe describe people's personalities, but the research again proves that this is not a binary trait. In fact, we all fall into somewhere, right? Like one of these kind of three groups on a continuum. Dandelions, tulips, and orchids, a nice friendly term borrowed from our flower friends. Dandelions, about 30% of us are the hardy ones, right? They're the resilient kind of warriors who thrive in any environment, right? Dandelions, can pop up anywhere, right? And they do okay in any kind of climate. Tulips, around 40%, they're the steady, reliable majority in the middle of the spectrum. So a little less capable, right, or have greater needs than the dandelions, but fewer needs than the orchids, right? So the orchids, also around 30%, are or would be considered like our highly perceptive advisors who can flourish, right, into something really extraordinary and beautiful in the right conditions. And those conditions are, of course, rather specific. The spectrum of sensitivity, again, I'm going to say it over and over again, we're all on it. So understanding where we each fall on this continuum helps us appreciate our own unique strengths and those of people around us. So, how does this ancient survival strategy then translate to our modern, complex world of work? So, this is where I think it gets revolutionary. So, for decades, we've tried to force orchids to behave like dandelions, and we've been destroying our most insightful leaders in the process. But those four innate traits, they're really a blueprint for the type of leadership that we need now. Your depth of processing means you're not just a manager, you're a master strategist. You see the entire system, anticipating consequences and connections that others miss. Your empathy is not a liability, it is the engine of psychological safety. You build trust instinctively, creating cultures where people feel safe enough to take risks and innovate. What company doesn't want that? And your ability to sense the subtle makes you the team's early warning system. You're the one who might spot the flaw in the plan, the quiet dissatisfaction in the team, and the emerging opportunities, right? Long before it shows up on a balance sheet. And you don't have to just take my word for it. The future of jobs is deeply human. The grand majority of critical skills needed in the next 5 years are not technical, although you absolutely still need a deep technical skill, but rather cognitive and social skills are what the requisite skill sets are for the future of leadership and the future of jobs. These include analytical and creative thinking, resilience, and flexibility, leadership, social influence, curiosity, lifelong learning. Additionally, they've got analytical thinking, talent management, motivation, self-awareness, systems thinking. These human skills are what are going to be considered essential. They are considered essential as AI and automation are transforming all workplaces. So, this again, not just a theory. These findings come from the authoritative World Economic Forum and their Future of Jobs report from this year, 2025, stating what core skills will be required in just 5 years' time by 2030. So fortunately for the naturally right, sensitive among us, these skills come naturally and transform your neutral trait into a true leadership superpower. So these are the skills that AI cannot automate, will never automate, and they are the very skills that are hardwired into the highly sensitive person. So your ability to think deeply combined with your natural emotional intelligence makes you uniquely positioned to be the most capable leader for our very complex future. So most important part, I think, is that when designing a workplace that nurtures its most sensitive members, right? We may, as we're listening to this, think, well, what about me, right? We have needs too. Well, great news. If you are designing a workplace that nurtures its most sensitive members, the orchids, you're going to create an environment that is healthier, more free, flexible, right? Thus more creative and innovative and more productive for the rest of your organization, for the tulips and the dandelions too. And guess what? Even the dandelions don't like seeing their tulip and orchid friends burn out or get fired for not fitting the mold. So, dandelions, just because they're resilient, don't lack compassion for being low on the sensitivity continuum. So, when we adapt work environments to support different neurotypes, this is just simply intelligent design, right? This is something we ought to be doing. It's what we need to be doing if we want to remain competitive over the long term. So we don't need accommodations. We need workplaces that are built on respect for different working styles, processing styles, autonomy in how work gets done, agency to shape our roles, flexibility in our schedules and environments. And so when we provide these, which are free, we are going to unlock the potential of the entire team. So importantly, you can't leverage sensitivity as a strength until you master it, right? And that requires work on your internal system, building the core competencies of emotional intelligence like self-awareness, self-control, self-regulation, self-compassion, and more. The path from Burnout or exhaustion to sustainable leadership is a learnable set of skills. And at North of Normal, in my firm, in my group team, and one-on-one coaching practice, I guide leaders through a 5-step self-mastery framework called Align. So those 5 steps are assess, liberate, integrate, ground, and navigate. Assess involves really taking an honest look at your current state and identifying areas for growth, and just identifying your unique neurological makeup through formal assessments like the HSPR, the revised assessment, the HSS. There are autism, ADHD, and other assessments, and a assessment that I use called the Berkman Method Signature, which is a workplace tool. It includes reflective depth coaching, right? Asking powerful questions that get to the core of who you are, what you need, and how you bring your strengths to bear in the world. Liberate is about freeing yourself from those limiting beliefs and unhealthy patterns. We all have them. It's just a matter of becoming aware of them and swapping them for healthy ones. One of the core goals here is to eliminate imposter syndrome if you have it, and trading that for a healthy self-awareness of gaps. We all have those, and a healthy self-awareness and of strengths. Integrate is about aligning your thoughts, feelings, and actions for greater coherence in all facets of your life. So, in this kind of phase, I draw on an understanding of the 8 C's of self leadership that's borrowed from internal family systems, evaluating just 5 core areas of well being: emotional, spiritual, financial, community, physical. Those aren't even the complete list of well being, but those are core. Ground is about the habits that keep you connecting and reconnecting with your core values and maintaining nervous system regulation. So, developing mindfulness habits that you deploy as needed to expand your window of tolerance and keep you in that optimal state of sensory arousal so that you can be at your best. Navigate, finally, is about charting a meaningful path forward. So, that's in alignment with your purpose, adjusting course as needed. Here we explore one of my favorites, which is the essential purpose of play and humor, something adult humans forget is possible and necessary for maintaining a healthy disposition and direction forward. So, that first step, right, the journey of understanding your unique sensitivity begins with clarity. So, take the official and newly revised and redesigned sensitivity scale that's used by researchers as a first step. Completing that assessment is a really important foundation for the rest of your journey. Again, sensitivity is the spectrum we're all on. I'll make sure to drop in other assessments in the video notes as well as how to get in touch for a debrief. And thank you very much for joining the call today. I hope you'll consider joining what I'm calling the sensitive leadership movement. I really believe the world needs more leaders who are brave enough to lead from their sensitive and neurodiverse nature rather than trying to mask it. And my work is dedicated to helping sensitive and neurodiverse leaders gain the skills of self mastery, trading self-doubt for self-leadership so they can create work lives and businesses that truly work for them. So there's a few ways to connect with me. You can sign up for my signature session. That's a 90-minute debrief. Download my free career guide, How to Find the Right Career, which is a guide for the uniquely wired. And you can follow my work on LinkedIn or really any of the major social media platforms. So again, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.